Howdy, howdy. Welcome to another random live stream. I am in the middle of prepping for the upcoming elk season. And so I was packing, have a lot of totes on the shelf back here behind me that you can't see. And that's where I keep all of my hunting equipment along with 90% of the other stuff that I have that doesn't go in the house. And so I was pulling totes down and have a list made, and I was getting things ready for this upcoming trip, trying to prep and make sure that all of the little odds and ends that I know I need to take are packed. I know me, and historically speaking, I am a procrastinator for one, but two, I always forget the things, the small items that I need for a trip. And so I like to make a list. And while going down the list, I realized that I hadn't packed a knife. I carry a pocket knife every day. I think most people these days carry some form of what we'll call like an everyday carry type of pocket knife. But I didn't pack anything for elk hunting and all that goes in with hunting and guiding. So I am going to be spending some time in New Mexico. The area I'm hunting is known for pretty good sized bulls. The area I'm guiding in, I will say, is known for pretty good sized bulls. And my experience in the past is that taking the right knives to a hunt can make or break the post hunt process. And so I've got a list of things that I want to cover. I'm going to split my screen so I can stay on subject here. And I've got some things that I want to cover. Y'all feel free to jump in the chat if you've got some input for it. But like I said, most of us carry a pocket knife, and those knives are not always aligned with meat preparation or meat conservation or skinning an animal. I'm reminded of a trip I went on a few years ago in South Texas on a nilgai hunt with a friend of mine, and got off the truck, and within 45 minutes of getting onto the property, I had shot the first bull of my hunt, and pretty quickly realized that I didn't, in fact, have a pocket knife. Not only did I not have a pocket knife, the pocket knife that I carried every day isn't something that was going to work adequately for the task at hand. When you start talking about big animals and thick-skinned animals like a nilgai or an elk, having an adequate blade for the task is pretty important. And so, like I said, while packing, I realized that I hadn't packed any knives for the trip, and I wanted to make sure that I had them. And I started laying things out, digging knives out of their random hiding places, and pretty quickly realized there's enough content here for a quick live stream. Decent conversation starter anyways, and something to help you kind of think through the process, kind of like I do. So why are knives critical? When we talk about hunting, the care of the animal after the harvest is pretty indicative of the level of attention to detail, but also can make or break what you take home trophy wise and what you take home meat wise. I've been on several deer hunts and had a pocket knife, something like this guy here, that really did not get the job done well, especially if you're doing like a backpack hunt or you're a walk-in hunt on public land. This guy will get you out of a tight spot with a whitetail size animal, but I don't know that you would get very far on an elk with a pocket knife this size. This is, for a comparison, this is a pretty small blade. This is one that I carried for years and years and years, and did not necessarily let me down, but I think in this scenario that it might. So several years ago, 2019 or 20 probably, I went on an out-of-state hunt and was concerned about the weight that I was carrying. It was a backpack style hunt. In the evening time, I was at a kind of a spike camp, if you will, but I was carrying everything I needed for the hunt and post-harvest on my back. And so I was worried about weight, and I didn't want to carry a bunch of bulky, I think we've all seen them. They usually show up around Christmas time, but like a hunter's game processing set. So it'll be like a bone saw and a skinning knife and a caping knife and a boning knife. And it comes in a hard plastic or blow molded case. And I didn't want to carry something like that, but I also wanted to be able to respectfully take care of the animal that I harvested and preserve the trophy, i.e. the cape, and debone the meat enough to where it would fit in my pack and get me off of the mountain. And so during that process, I started doing a bunch of exploration in the knife world. I have a few friends who are either hobby or professional knife makers. One of the knives that stays here on the bench pretty regularly, it's been known to open a cardboard box or two, is a blade that a buddy of mine made me. Brian over at Blackshear Blade Works made this beautiful knife, super heavy, got a great feel to it, probably pushing 1/4 of an inch thick at the spine, very, very heavy blade, but not something that I really wanted to carry into the woods to skin an animal with. And so I started looking at the replaceable blade knives and scalpels that are sold kind of in the outdoor arena. I think of like Havalon knives. There's a few of them in this category, but they all have fairly small scalpel sized blades. And when you're talking about skinning a black bear or an elk, and you need to remove a lot of hide, for one, a very pointed blade, in my experience, when the tip is extremely sharp, has the tendency to nick the hide, but also the tip on these blades is super fine and they break. So I keep an X-Acto knife on the bench here. This guy lives here for general purpose utility kind of blade. And I don't know if the light is going to allow me, but the tip on these is perpetually broken. So you get into a project and you're working on something, and these blade tips are micro fine, and they have the tendency to break off. Well, I don't like picking shot out of birds that I've shot, and I definitely don't want to pick a piece of a razor blade out of an animal that I caped out on the side of a mountain and didn't realize that the blade broke and is lodged in the meat somewhere and it goes through the grinder. It's just not something that I want to contend with. And so I kind of avoided those really fine scalpel style blades. And I ended up in this guy. This is a pocket knife. It's got a pocket clip on it. It's made by a company called Outdoor Edge. It is the Onyx EDC. It's kind of an everyday carry style, pocket knife style, but it has replaceable, like a surgical stainless blade that's pretty easy to replace. And so caping an animal or skinning an animal, heavy-haired animals like a black bear or an elk, that hair has the tendency to dull a blade if you don't work from the inside the flesh, but rather from outside the flesh. You can dull a blade pretty quick. And on an animal the size of an elk, blades get dull. Rather than carrying a separate stone or a sharpening jig or a fixture to sharpen the blade on a pocket knife, I decided for a replaceable blade. It's easy to just swap one of these guys out. I wear a binocular harness on all my hunting anyways, and so I just keep a couple of replacement blades in the little mesh pouch behind my binoculars. And so I carried this as a pocket knife in my pocket with a pocket clip for several years. This blade, this knife has probably have 5 years with this. Now it's a little worse for the wear. Again, the lighting is going to fight me here, but the blade socket is a lot looser than it used to be. The thumb screw for opening it is long missing. I lost one of the screws for the pocket clip and had to replace it. But this is a lock back, pretty durable blade. I trimmed limbs on a Christmas tree in the Middle East with this exact knife. I said it's been around the world with me, and on multiple hunts has skinned a lot of animals and done a lot worse, harder work on everyday purposes. But I found that this guy was getting towards the end of its life. It's still functional. It still locks, but the blade is quite loose, and the blade socket, which isn't something that can be tightened, is very loose. And it's no longer aligns perfectly. You have to kind of guide the blade to get it back into its closed position. So I said, let's see what else is on the market out there. And then I found that Outdoor Edge still makes replaceable blade knives, but now they have started making an everyday carry style. So a little more friendly for the pocket of your blue jeans, but also a little more aesthetically pleasing. This is the one I just picked up today. This is a Razor VX5. It's the carbon fiber. I thought it was kind of cool looking carbon fiber scales, but it also has replaceable blades. This is a 3-inch replaceable blade versus the 3.5 that I've been carrying for a couple of years. But I figured that it's balanced well. It's got good purchase, and it should do the job. And so this is what I use for skinning most animals. I have, this particular one is new to me. Like I said, today it's a liner lock instead of a lock back. This one is new to me, but I have used this one to skin, I don't know how many whitetail and axis deer, a couple of bobcats, a gray fox, some hogs. I took the back strap out of a couple of pigs with this exact blade. And so I figured if this one held up as long as it has for as rough as I am on blades, that this one would work as well. And so for my skinning knife, I will carry this on my body during hunting and use it for removing vitals and internals, if you will, so gutting, but also to remove the skin from the animal. Where I'm hunting and guiding this fall, there is a skinning rack at the main bunkhouse area, and so most of the skinning will be done after the animal is already hanging on an A-frame. But this is what I will be using to do that skinning with. Now, these are, like I said, this is a stainless constructed knife. I think the liners are probably carbon steel, and obviously the spring for the pocket clip is carbon. But the blades themselves are stainless, surgical grade stainless, and then the blade socket on the actual knife itself is stainless. Super cool. Why I like stainless, again, these are replaceable blades. If it was a knife that I was going to be doing a bunch of skinning, like this Schrade, I tend to lean towards a higher carbon steel instead of a stainless, just because they hold a better edge for longer. Stainless is a bit harder to sharpen sometimes, but because these are replaceable, that is the route that I went, was with stainless. So let's talk about care of the cape after the animal has been skinned. So we'll take an elk, for example, and we've removed the hide from the animal, and we have a skull and antler, presumably, with the cape still attached. And then it has a T cut or a Y cut towards the back of the antler, so the skull has been removed from the rest of the spine. I like to use a scalpel for that finer work, especially if you're doing cape preparation for a customer or for yourself for that matter, and you're going to do really fine detailed work to save, say the really sensitive skin inside of the lips or around the septum area inside the nose. There are a lot of skinning videos for cape preparation on the internet if you wanted to watch one of those. But that really fine, detailed work around the eye socket, where the tear ducts stay on the cape, and the ear sockets, separating the cartilage, that kind of thing. And so I prefer a scalpel, and I like a replaceable blade scalpel, just because it's very fine. I can get in while controlling the hide and use that scalpel to do very detailed work. I like the replaceable blade instead of the disposable scalpel, because it's a lot easier for me to get rid of metal blades or stainless blades than it is for me to get rid of plastic, especially in the field. You don't want to leave a bunch of plastic or trash around, and these are a lot easier to dispose of. In my experience, you drop them in a soda can, they ride in the back of the truck until you get to the scrap yard or to a trash can, plastic soda bottle, that kind of thing. This is a super cheap, just a stainless. It's actually a really crappy grade of stainless, but a stainless scalpel itself that uses replaceable blades. I will say that if you're going to purchase one of these cheapy ones from online or Tractor Supply or somewhere like that, that the fit and finish on the handles themselves is not the most comfortable. These are usually made offshore, China, Pakistan, India, somewhere like that. And they're stamped real quickly, and the machining work is kind of crude. So before you take it to the field and plan on using it, I like with these, I will take the corners off. The corners are always super sharp just because of how they're stamped. I will take the corners off on the belt sander with like 180 grit or so belt, just to round everything out and make it smooth. But like I said, using replaceable blades, like a number 10 or maybe a number 11 replaceable blade. These are super easy to get online. You can buy them in a pack of 100, 10, 20, 100, however many you want. And then the handles are reusable. Make sure that you are sanitizing this at the end of your hunts. I used to have one, like I said, these are relatively low quality stainless, and I had one that got left fairly dirty, and put it in a tote here in the shop, and it managed to grow some rust. And so I keep a couple of these, but make sure you're cleaning them and sanitizing them after use. Let's go a little bit bigger into a utility knife. So now we've got the hide off of the animal. We've got the cape prepared, all of the detailed cuts. I like to cut along the teeth line and like I said, around the tear duct and the eye socket. That's what I like the scalpel for. You can use an X-Acto knife, but I will caution you that these, like I said, the blades are very delicate. They like to break super easily, but these get super slippery when your hands are covered in fluids, bodily fluids from an animal. And so I prefer the scalpel because it has a lot more texture to it. But let's get to a utility and talk about deboning and meat care. Several years ago, I started hunting with a close friend of mine. He's kind of like a second dad to me, if you will. And he has decades and decades and decades more of experience in animal care and meat preparation than I have. And so I tend to lean towards him for advice. And years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we were on a deer hunt, and he was using a blade just like this one here. And I asked him, I said, "Where did you get that?" And he gave it to me because he has 3 or 4 of them. And so this is a heavy, kind of a stiff bladed, kind of a utility or general purpose boning knife. You may also call it a kitchen knife, depending on what brand you purchase. But this one is sold by the manufacturer as a stiff boning knife. This is made by a company called, nope, reflection's going to kill it. There you go. Jero, Jero. It's a Portuguese company, and they are made with a really high quality stainless. Some of their advertising says it's German quality, all sales pitch, but I have had this one for a couple of years, and I have neglected it a few times, and it has never rusted, and it holds an outstanding edge. I don't keep it super, super sharp. It's not shave your hair on your hand sharp, but I do keep it fairly sharp, and I keep a sharpener and a steel handy when using this. Like I said, this is a 6-inch Jero, Jero, stiff boning knife. And so this, I will do the vast majority of deboning on all game animals. I have used this on rabbits and a bobcat. I've used it on feral hogs, whitetail, axis deer. It's a very good blade length for me. You can turn the blade towards you and work down and not have to worry about excessive blade length. Not the recommended use, but it is also short enough to not get into the entrails when removing hide, but also long enough to get, say, through a leg quarter on an elk. If you were deboning an elk rear leg, this will get all the way to the bone. I like to come down, legs up in the skinning rack, go down to the bone and follow that bone. This is long enough to do that. And it's stiff enough for good deboning of rib meat, and flexible enough to follow like a back strap down the spine. This is my ideal blade for that purpose. Like I said, a utility meat prep and deboning knife. It is a rubberized grip. They make them in a bunch of different versions. I'm not even going to link this because you can just Google JERO knives and find 100 different retailers that sell them. I don't have sponsorship or anything with them. I just have used it a bunch and I believe in this one. Super affordable, 20, 30 bucks, depending on where you buy it. They sell a multiple set, so you can get a set with like a skinning, boning, and I don't remember, caping knife maybe, or whatever they call them in the set. And so very, very affordable, available in a lot of online retailers. JERO. If you haven't checked them out, I'm super happy. They sell a couple of versions, a flexible blade and a stiff blade. They sell a lot of them, but that's what I carry for deboning and meat prep. So let's talk about the utility blades that you carry in the field. So for example, a replaceable blade skinning knife or a utility knife, the replacement blades. So these are normally sold with the knife itself, but they come in a soft plastic, kind of retail friendly packaging. And so this one has a bunch of different knives in it. This is a caping blade that goes with that 3-inch. Fight the reflection there. They have a little protective cover on the front of them so they don't cut through the plastic, but they are not the most secure way to carry them. If you're not careful, you can cut through that plastic. Like I said, I carry one of these or something similar to this inside my binocular harness against my body. And so having something secure to hold those blades in. Well, I recently learned that they sell a hard-sided blade holder for these replacement blades. You can hold, I think this one holds 2 blades and then a gutting blade on one side. And so this is what I will be carrying from now on inside my harness. So just a way to carry extra blades in the field, super handy. But with scalpels as well, the tips of these blades are really, really fine. And these are in a hard plastic holder inside these little Mylar sleeves. I recommend leaving them in the sleeve. And then if you're going to carry them in your pack, something like a pill bottle, or I always carry, give me a second, I'll show you. I've got all my stuff out. And so I carry an extra Nalgene bottle in my pack, depending on where we're hunting. Inside this is a Sawyer water filter and bag. And then you're getting a bunch of extra tips, by the way. Some fire starter sticks, a Bic lighter. It's a really good waterproof way to carry all of your necessities you want to keep dry, but a great place to drop your replacement blades in as well, so they do not cut through wherever you're carrying them. Why do I carry what I carry? I've talked about kind of my thought process behind how they're used. I have not talked about all the trial and error that I went through to get to where I am. I carried this blade for a long time. This was given to me by my dad when I was probably 10 or 12 years old. I've had this blade for a long time, and it has been all over the place with me and through every kind of woods you can imagine. It's a stainless blade. It's a Schrade USA. It has a decent quality steel to it. It will get sharp, but in my opinion, it doesn't stay sharp. I'm not picking on Schrade here, but it doesn't stay sharp for a long time. I've carried just about every kind of knife you could think of. Case, Schrade, Gerber, CKRT, Boker, you name it. I've carried one of their folding blade pocket knives. I carried a Gerber folding knife in my first deployment overseas, and I still have that blade. The tip is chipped off, but I still have the knife in wherever it's at. I've got a whole drawer full of like my junk catch-all drawer, and there are probably 25 knives in there, and I quit carrying all of them for one primary reason, and that was edge holding. I'm pretty rough on a pocket knife. And when we're talking about hunting heavy animals and thick-skinned animals, it's pretty rough on a knife. And not having to carry a sharpener, I'm not great with a whetstone. I own 3 or 4 of them. I'm terrible with it. I will own that. And so I have gone to replaceable blades. I don't know that many of you are going to change my mind. You'd have to have a really compelling argument for why not to carry one of these. The blades are affordable. The knives, this I think is $75 from Outdoor Edge. It's a super affordable locking, folding pocket knife. It can go with me in blue jeans in my everyday life here in the shop, or it can go with me to a backpack style hunt. It's not heavy enough to really weigh me down. This is why I have landed on a replaceable blade knife. I am terrible at sharpening one, and I am regularly in a position where I need a sharper blade than what I have, and simply swapping a blade out and going back to work is way more convenient for me than learning and getting good at sharpening or carrying a sharpener and having to sharpen in the field. How many knives do you really need? So like I said, I'm guiding for a portion of the season, and I will also be taking a rifle and hunting. And I would say if you are going on a guided hunting trip, you probably don't need to carry all of these knives to the field with you. If you are going on a trip where the outfitter is going to do animal care for you, you definitely don't need one of these. If you were probably not one of these. If you are going on a self-guided hunt or a backpack style hunt or a DIY style hunt, these are all probably things that you should consider. At minimum, a skinning knife and some sort of heavy bladed meat prep utility blade knife. At a minimum, I would say 2. I prefer having the ability, if you're going to cape out an animal and not do a Euro mount, but if you're worried about the cape and the face on an animal, your taxidermist will thank you for learning to use one of these and taking it with you in the field. Doing that preparation and leaving as much of the septum as possible, leaving all of the skin inside of the lips and the tear ducts in the face and the cartilage at the base of the ears, leaving all of that, your taxidermist will thank you, I promise you. But learn how to use it before you take it out into the field and you start butchering an animal. Most guys that I know will leave the hide attached to the skull and then do that in a more controlled environment on the tailgate of the truck or what have you. That's probably the best bet. This will stay at the camp where I'm going to be doing the majority of the trophy preparation for customers. Let's talk about weight versus utility. Again, if you're going on a backpack style hunt where every ounce counts, ounces equal pounds, one blade that does multiple jobs is more appropriate than multiple knives. And that's why, again, I have gone to a replaceable blade knife. This is a utility blade that's in this knife. Nothing fancy, but with the push of a button, I pull that blade out and then I can put in a caping knife, or I can put in a gut hook, or I can put in a serrated blade, or some of the Outdoor Edge blades can use multiple styles. They have a fillet style blade, like a 6-inch blade that goes in one of these smaller knives. Pretty handy. You just have multiple blades instead of having multiple knives. But if you're not going to be remote and backpack hunting and carrying all of these ounces, I would say that multiple knives is probably the best approach. What do I look at for sharpening, edge retention? So like I said, I normally carry one of these. This is an sharp. I have one that stays here in the shop, but I also, give me one second, mom is calling. I also carry one. These are a couple of ounces. Carry one of these in the field. If I'm going to be camping or hunting from a base, it stays at that base location, i.e. the bunkhouse this year. And I use that multiple times while using this knife, as well as a steel. But that steel usually stays hanging on the skinning rack the entire time that I'm going to be guiding and hunting. Outside of that, like I said, I've gone to replaceable blade just because of the ease of use. The blade gets dull, you pull it out, you put a sharp blade in, you continue working. You're not spending time sharpening. You don't run the risk of cutting your hand or whatever the case may be by sharpening a blade 3 or 4 times while skinning an elk. Backup or redundancy. Like I said, my approach is to carry this blade with me. In the event that you lost this, I am capable of using a blade like this to skin an animal. Wouldn't be ideal, but it's possible. But I don't think that you need to go out as John J. Rambo and have 5 different blades with you. I think it's more appropriate to have a primary blade. If you're only going to carry one, I would say you're probably setting yourself up for failure. Carry one blade, a primary, and then have an alternate, a backup. This thing here is in the weight range of ounces. Super light, super handy. Will get you out of a tight spot should you lose your primary knife. And then what do I look for in a blade before it makes it into my pack or before it makes it into my hunting gear that I'm packing? Utility, edge holding, weight, and then reliability. Like this particular knife, I have 5 or 6 years with this very blade. I said it's been to the far side of the earth and back with me. Has done way more than a utility knife or a pocket knife should have to do. I've asked a lot out of this guy, and he's still kicking. That is a reliable knife that I would continue to carry. I expect the same out of this new one. Very well built. It's a little bit heavier just because of the carbon fiber component, a little bit heavier scales instead of an injection molded plastic. But I fully expect it to last several years and to get multiple seasons of use out of it. The same with this Gero. I have multiple seasons out of this. If I carried a blade, say for example, this guy right here, and the first time I used it, I spent more time sharpening it than I did on the animal, I'm not going to continue to carry that. My experience has taught me that this brand and this blade, this exact knife, have all the qualities and properties that I look for in a utility knife. And so I'm going to continue to carry it. If you're just trying out a blade and you are not 100% certain that it's going to work for you, I will tell you that you can spend as much money on a knife as you would want. Something like this from a custom knife maker, several $100s versus bulk made offshore somewhere. That, like I said, this one is from Portugal. These are $20. It's a lot easier to buy 3 of these until you find one that works for you. It's a lot easier on the pocketbook, I will say, than it is buying one of these and then finding out that it just doesn't work for your application. Sorry, Brian, I'm not saying your knife is crap. I actually love this one, but it's not something I carry into the woods. So let's wrap it up there. There's been 0 input in the chat, and viewership has kind of fallen on its face. Time of day, and I understand bandwidth restrictions, video quality is probably garbage today. But especially with the weather blowing in, that's blowing in, I said, let's leave it there. I'm going to post this video over on the main channel. And if you have any comments, drop them in the comments section. If you need a link or a recommendation on where I get stuff like this on a budget-friendly basis, or kind of a product review of something like this, like I said, at the end of the season, I'm going to tell you pretty quickly if this is worth a crap or not. I'm going to drop this over on the main channel, so you'll be able to comment in the upcoming months. And then by the time I get back from my hunting season and guiding, I should have a pretty good idea of how well this is going to work for me. But I hope y'all find this useful. Thank y'all for hanging out this evening. I'm going to jump off of here and turn the fan back on and finish putting that 1911 back together that needs to go out the door tomorrow. Thank y'all for hanging out.